Hi everyone, my name's Kara. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am happy to be a second year fellow in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. I've been teaching remotely at Universitas Gadjah Mada since August 2020.
Kara, so let's start at the beginning. When you first submitted your application to be a Shansi Fellow, what made you decide to apply and why was Jogja your first choice?
Yogyakarta was my first choice for a lot of reasons. I had heard so many wonderful things about the students in the Chair program, the Center for Cross-Cultural and Religious Studies program. And I was inspired by their research, how closely it connected to their home communities. I liked the interdisciplinary aspect of it and the chance to help them refine their research in English. Outside of teaching, I was also excited by the possibility of learning more about dance in Jogja as a cultural hub for Javanese arts and culture. Starting with the Shansi in Asia grant in 2019, I'd been learning about a dance called Pangalai, which originates from Sulu Archipelago, which is part of the Philippines, but is also present in parts of Indonesia and Malaysia. And that jump-started a strong passion in Southeast Asian arts, specifically dance.
And you were a dance major at Oberlin too.
Right. I studied dance. My undergraduate honors thesis was actually in Pangalai. I wasn't intending to write an honors thesis, but it happened to be a possibility made possible by the In Asia grant because I had a chance to go and learn it in person in Manila, or a specific version of it.
You were a senior and you were writing this thesis, I assume, and thinking about all the ways that you would learn more in Jogja, and then COVID happened. And I'm wondering how you processed those few weeks and what made you decide to continue.
Yeah, everyone has their own story of what happened during that time. For me, it was really just a matter of where do I want to be. During that time, I was still really excited about getting to know the students at UGM, even though for the unforeseen future, we would be studying online. I realized there were lots of opportunities for us to engage remotely. I could bring in different experiences from my studies in dance to our online classroom. In fact, those skills were needed more than ever in an online classroom because students were spending hours and hours online, not seeing each other and struggling to find ways to cope with this global crisis. And so we needed a space for considering the ways our bodies inform our lived experience. And those were tools I had picked up through dance.
One of the really unique and I think for me personally most valuable aspects of the Shansi Fellowship experience compared to others is the language immersion. And for Jogja Fellows, that's the course at Alam Bahasa, and it's also our first experience of Jogja and life in Jogja and applying the lessons that we learn in class as we sort of navigate this new culture and start making connections. What was that like for you to learn Bahasa remotely?
That really was the core of my first year, I think. I started learning Bahasa before I even started teaching. So meeting my teachers, Batsili and Leah at Alam Bahasa, they were my first true connections in Jogja. Being able to learn with them this past year has truly been wonderful. I'd say that they helped me feel more prepared for when I do eventually arrive on site. And I've been able to connect so much more closely to UGM and to arts and culture happenings in Jogja because I have this foundation in Bahasa Indonesia. So I've been able to attend virtual events, navigate certain websites, learn about what's happening on the ground in a way I wouldn't have been able to without those classes.
In your narrative, you also talked about how you were finding a lot of similarities between Bahasa and your native language, Kapampangan.
Right. So my dad's family is from Angeles City, Pampanga, where the local language is Kapampangan, and they share a root in Malay. So there are certain words that sounded really familiar that was comforting and exciting for me. Now that I have a foundation in Indonesian, I dream of learning Kapampangan someday.
So tell me more about this experience of teaching remotely and what has that reality been like for you?
It's been really fun to teach online. I've been able to try some new things with technology that I know I would never have considered. It's encouraged me to get really efficient with my lesson planning and really deeply consider and be intentional about what I'm bringing to the classroom because I want to make sure that all the time they spend in front of the screen is time well spent, and that it's time they spend connecting with each other, using the language deliberately, and talking about things that are important to them. So even as I was learning about how to teach online, they were learning how to bring their needs into the classroom and create a space where we're not just learning English, but also helping them manage during this time and acknowledge and consider current events as they were happening.
Mhm. You've now been doing this for a year, and thinking about entering your second year. What connections have been most meaningful to you, either remotely or in person where you are?
A primary connection for me has been continuing to learn Indonesian. I've also been, I returned to a Filipino performing arts group that I danced with before I went to Oberlin. And just yesterday, actually, I got to perform in a gala, their annual gala with them for the first time. I've written a bit about movement and stillness, which is an aspect of Pangalay, but also of Javanese dance. And I think it's a very apt metaphor for this time, finding movement and flexibility and possibility in a
Yeah.
situation that might seem a bit gridlocked or stuck.
I love that you highlighted that in your narrative. I thought it is such a central part of Javanese intangible culture, and so I loved that you brought this idea into your narrative and just how much it resonates with um, both the research that you're doing, the dance that you're doing, your life, and how you've experienced it. Like it's a really beautiful phrase. As you know, we're raising funds to support independent projects in Asia for the fellows that have been working remotely for more than a year. And I'd love to hear about what you hope to do with your time in Asia.
With an independent project, I would be able to fill a gap in the research that I'm seeing regarding Pangalay. And primarily, it would be just wonderful to connect with my students in person and be able to see them in Jogja and see that movement and stillness live, see it fully embodied and in context. So it would be fantastic to be in Jogja in person and um, be able to see Pangalay in Kalimantan as well, and really recognize the solidarities and connections in intangible arts in dance cultures across maritime Southeast Asia.
So much overlap between the Philippines and Indonesia and Malaysia, and the Pacific Islands. Like it's amazing that you're able to see these connections, and I really hope that you get to follow them and see where it takes you. I think that that would be an incredible use of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kara. This has been a pleasure. Any words of advice you'd like to give to fellows who are experiencing the remote fellowship?
First of all, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I have felt so supported this past year, and I really appreciate you taking the time to um, talk to a current fellow about what it's been like and reflect on even your own fellowship experience. To current fellows, junior and senior, I just want to say I see you. I really appreciate you.